Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into a story that really challenges what we think we know about relationships and crime. A case where this picture-perfect marriage, 25 years long, in rural Wisconsin, well, it hid something truly terrifying.
Yeah, and our mission today is to dive into the source material, mostly a detailed true crime documentary transcript. We want to focus on how the investigators essentially stopped listening to the husband's, emotional story and started listening purely to the science.
The forensic science.
Exactly, the physics, the pathology. How that science basically took apart this elaborate story piece by piece and showed it was murder, not an accident.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Salem, Wisconsin. Todd and Barbara Kendhammer, high school sweethearts, married for a quarter of a century, and the image they projected.
Oh, it was, by all accounts, idyllic.
Yeah.
The sources really stress this. Stable, middle class, kids raised, grandkids arriving.
Right.
Barbara worked part-time at a school cafeteria, and she famously decorated her space with family photos. Just, proud of this life they'd built.
Their own daughter called the marriage absolutely perfect.
Ridiculously in love was another quote that came up. They were even planning to buy the 80-acre farm they lived on. So outwardly, no signs of trouble, no financial stress, no visible conflict, none.
And that complete normality is what makes what happened next so jarring. Because if you just took the initial story at face value, it's just an unbelievable tragedy.
A freak accident on an ordinary Friday morning. That was September 16th, 2016.
Okay, walk us through that morning.
Well, Todd had his regular job at Crown Cork and Seal, the cam plant, but he also did auto glass repair on the side. And this becomes sort of central to his initial explanation.
Reason for the drive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He needed a reason for them to be out early.
So around 7:30 a.m., they leave home in their gray Toyota Camry.
And Todd's story was they were going to pick up a friend's pickup truck near Hamilton. Something about a windshield repair needed for that truck.
Right. It fit his side business narrative perfectly.
And we actually have a timestamp just before things went wrong, don't we? We do. Surveillance cameras are everywhere now. At 7:57 a.m., a farm camera catches the Camry driving normally down County Highway M. Just a couple driving somewhere, looks completely normal.
Okay, 7:57 a.m., normal. Then just 12 minutes later.
12 minutes. At 8:09 a.m., Todd Kendhammer calls 911. And he sounds absolutely frantic.
What does he say happened?
He tells the dispatcher this incredibly specific, shocking story. He says a heavy metal pipe, maybe 10, 12 pounds, fell off an oncoming flatbed truck.
Fell off?
Yeah, flew off, he said. Quote, like a missile, smashed right through the passenger side windshield.
Oh my God.
And hit Barbara directly, head and throat. He's telling the dispatcher she's unresponsive, bleeding everywhere, basically dying right there.
So right from that first call, he's framed it. He's the witness, the victim of this random, horrible event, the devoted husband trying to save his wife.
Absolutely. It's a powerful narrative to start with.
Okay, so first responders get there. What do they find?
They arrive just minutes later on Burgham Cooley Road. And initially, the scene seems to match his panicked call. The Camry Camry's off the road, just slightly, in a shallow ditch on the right side. And there's this jagged pipe sticking right through the shattered passenger windshield.
Just like he described. Horrifying.
Truly horrific. Barbara's slumped in the passenger seat. Her injuries are obviously severe, life-threatening.
And Todd. Where's Todd?
He's outside the car, kneeling. Looks shaken, distraught. And crucially, he's got his own injuries. Cuts, bruises on his hands, his neck, his chest.
Which he immediately explains.
Immediately. He tells the investigators, the pipe came through, he pulled over instantly. He claims he instinctively punched the windshield in shock when it happened.
Okay, that explains the knuckles, maybe.
Right. And then he says he got more cuts handling the broken glass when he pulled the pipe out of the windshield so he could give Barbara CPR.
So he's accounted for his own injuries, the pipe being disturbed, everything. He's the hero trying to save her.
It's a very detailed story, covering all the immediate physical evidence on him and at the scene.
But Barbara's injuries were just too severe.
Far too severe. She was rushed to Gunderston Health System, went into surgery, but never regained consciousness. She passed away early the next morning, September 17th. She was only 46.
At this point, it's still officially a tragic accident investigation, right? A fatality.
Initially, yes. But almost immediately, investigators started noticing things. Little cracks appearing in that very coherent story Todd was telling.
And this is where it shifts. From tragedy to suspicion. What was the first big red flag?
The biggest one, the one that hung over the entire case, was the truck. The flatbed truck.
The source of the pipe.
The alleged source. Todd insisted this heavy 10-pound pipe fell off an oncoming flatbed. But despite massive searches, public appeals, nothing.
Nobody saw it. In a rural area, wouldn't someone notice a truck losing cargo like that? Especially if it caused a fatal crash?
You'd think so. But there was absolutely no trace of this truck or its driver. It was like a ghost vehicle. The entire accident story depended on something that, as far as anyone could tell, just didn't exist.
And the surveillance footage didn't help his story either.
It actively contradicted it. Remember that farm camera footage at 7:57 a.m.?
Yeah, showing the Camry driving normally.
Investigators checked that footage thoroughly. They looked at traffic logs. They could not find any evidence of a large flatbed truck going the other way on that road around that time.
Yeah.
Not at 7:57, not just before, not just after.
So no truck, no driver, no witnesses to the truck, and no surveillance evidence of the truck. That's a pretty big hole in the story.
A massive hole. So now you're looking at that 12-minute gap again, 7:57 a.m. to 8:09 a.m. What really happened then?
If the accident didn't happen the way he described, investigators must have started thinking the violence, the actual attack on Barbara, happened during those 12 minutes.
That became the working theory. Either while the car was stopped somewhere, or maybe even while it was still moving, before the 911 call. And then the staging happened.
And wasn't there a witness who saw something really strange, something that suggested staging?
Yes. This is another huge crack in the story. A local person drove past the scene shortly after the supposed crash time. They saw the Ken Hammer's Camry sitting there in the ditch.
Okay.
But, and this is the key part, they reported that the windshield looked unbroken. And there was no one outside the car.
Wait, unbroken?
Unbroken. If that witness is right, it means the entire scene Todd presented to first responders, the shattered windshield, the pipe sticking through it, Todd outside with his injuries, was all set up after the car was already in the ditch.
So he put the car in the ditch and then broke the windshield with the pipe.
That's what the evidence started to suggest, that he forced the pipe through the glass himself, probably from the outside, to create the illusion of that missile impact.
Wow. Okay, so the physical scene is starting to look staged. What about Todd himself? How did his story hold up under questioning?
Investigators said he was cooperative, seemed upset, but his story wasn't just inconsistent in the way a traumatized person might be forgetting small details. It changed in specific, small but significant ways. Details about exactly where they were going. The purpose of the trip kept circling back to that friend's truck needing a windshield repair. Almost like he was reinforcing that part of the narrative.
Trying too hard to make it fit.
Perhaps. And the exact sequence of events around the impact and his rescue attempt seemed to shift slightly with each retelling. It wasn't memory loss, it felt more like adjusting the story.
So the story's crumbling, the scene looks staged. This is where the forensic science really takes center stage, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is where the prosecution built its case. They brought in the experts, accident reconstructionists, forensic analysts, and looked at the car, the pipe, the glass, the blood, and Barbara's injuries. And the science, well, it told a completely different story than Todd did.
Let's start with the physics. The pipe hitting the windshield. What did the reconstruction experts find?
Okay, so if a heavy pipe flies off an oncoming truck at speed, basic physics dictates how it should hit the windshield, right? The angle, the force.
Should be pretty direct, pretty forceful, given the speeds involved.
Exactly. But the analysis showed the pipe hit the windshield from what they called an unusual direction. The angle was too shallow. The way the glass broke didn't match the energy you'd expect from a projectile hitting a moving car after flying off another moving vehicle.
So it didn't look like it flew off the truck.
It looked more like the force was applied while the car was stationary or moving very slowly, like someone pushed or rammed the pipe through the glass from nearby, not like it arrived as a high-speed missile. The physics just didn't support his story.
Okay, the physics are shaky. What about the evidence inside the car? The glass and the blood. You said that was damning.
Utterly damning. Let's talk about the glass first.
Yeah.
Windshield glass shatters in a specific way. Little cubes, fragments everywhere.
Right.
The analysts looked very closely at the passenger seat where Barbara was found. They found glass fragments spread evenly all over the seat, the cushion, the floor, everywhere.
Evenly? Why is that significant?
Because if Barbara had been sitting there when the windshield broke, her body would have blocked the glass.
Ah, okay. I see.
Most of the fragments should have been found under where her legs and torso were, or embedded in her clothes. The fact that the glass was spread evenly across an empty space proved the seat was unoccupied when the impact happened.
So the windshield was broken before she was placed in the seat.
That's the inescapable conclusion from the glass evidence. had to have been put there after the window was smashed.
That alone just destroys his timeline.
Completely. And then the blood evidence backed it up. Analysts examined the blood-stained strips, smears, flow patterns on the seats, the center console, the floor.
And what did the blood show?
Two critical things. First, the amount and nature of the bleeding suggested it had been going on for some time, longer than the immediate aftermath. It hinted at a delay between the injury and the 911 call.
Okay, a time lapse.
But, more importantly, the patterns of the blood flow showed that Barbara's body hadn't just been sitting still in the passenger seat when she was bleeding.
What do you mean?
The patterns, like how gravity pulled the drips where the smears were, indicated her body had been positioned differently. Specifically, over the center console area and down onto the passenger side floor while she was bleeding.
She was moved. That's what happened.
She was definitely moved. The blood proved she wasn't just struck and then stayed there while he called 911. She was manipulated, repositioned within the car after the injuries occurred. Again, total contradiction of his story.
So the scene was faked, the physics don't work, the glass shows she wasn't there, the blood shows she was moved, the accident is impossible. Now, the autopsy. What did Dr. McCubbin find? Did it match up pipe injury?
Not even close. The autopsy revealed the true, brutal nature of what happened to Barbara. The cause of death wasn't a single impact like you'd expect from a pipe strike. It was blunt impact injuries to the head and neck.
Pleural injuries.
Yes, and not consistent with a pipe coming through the front window. Dr. McCubbin found 3 distinct, deep cuts on the back of Barbara's head.
The back? How could a pipe coming through the windshield do that?
It couldn't. She also had a fractured nose, a fractured skull, widespread bruising all over her body, and clear signs of neck trauma. Hemorrhaging in the neck muscles consistent with strangulation.
Strangulation? Good Lord. 3 hits to the back of the head, broken nose, fractured skull, bruising, strangulation. This wasn't an accident. This was a beating, a sustained assault.
Precisely. It was close quarters, personal violence. And one more absolutely crucial finding from the autopsy.
What was that?
Remember all that shattered glass from the windshield?
Yeah.
They found 0 glass fragments in any of Barbara's wounds. None. Given how violently the glass broke and the severity of her head injuries, if she'd been there when it happened, you'd expect glass in the wounds.
Its absence proved the violence happened somewhere else, or at least away from the breaking glass.
Exactly. It strongly indicated the beating, the strangulation happened first. Then separately, the windshield was broken as part of the staging.
So the science, physics, glass, blood, autopsy, it all points one way. Todd Kenhammer killed his wife and staged an elaborate accident.
The forensic evidence left basically no room for doubt. He wasn't a grieving widower caught in a freak event. He was a killer trying to cover his tracks.
Which brings us to the big question mark hanging over this whole case. Why? What was the motive?
And that's where this case gets really perplexing, almost frustrating. Because usually in domestic homicides, there are warning signs, right? A history, financial problems, something.
But here, nothing.
Nothing apparent. We talked about the perfect image. Stable finances, happy family, planning for the future, buying that farm. Even the prosecutor acknowledged there was absolutely no record of domestic violence. No police calls to the house, no restraining orders, nothing.
It just doesn't fit the usual pattern at all.
It really doesn't. It makes you think about, those relationships where the control or the conflict is so deeply hidden, so masked, that nobody sees it. Not friends, not neighbors, maybe not even the kids.
The only evidence of conflict was the violence itself, discovered after her death.
Exactly. The autopsy report became the only record of trouble in that 25-year marriage.
It's chilling to think about the level of deception involved. Not just in the staging, but potentially for years before.
The prosecution, led by Tim Brinke, had to construct a theory for the jury that explained not just how the science proved that, but also fit that bizarre 12-minute window and the sheer brutality.
What was their timeline? How did they argue it happened?
Their theory was pretty stark. They argued that sometime during that drive, or perhaps shortly after stopping, a violent argument erupted between Todd and Barbara.
An argument that escalated horrifically.
Yes, escalated into Todd beating Barbara savagely. The head injuries, the fractured skull, the strangulation, all happening likely inside or near the car. This accounts for the nature of the injuries and the time lapse suggested by the blood evidence.
And then the cover-up began.
Then came the staging. After she was dead or dying, he drove the car into the ditch. Then he took that pipe and deliberately smashed the passenger windshield from the outside.
Positioning the pipe to look like the cause.
Right. Then he moved Barbara's body into the passenger seat, arranging her to fit the story of being struck there.
And his own injuries, the cuts and bruises.
The prosecution argued he inflicted those on himself, punching the already broken glass, maybe scraping himself, to make his story of the shocking impact and heroic rescue attempt seem believable.
Hurting himself to sell the lie, that's next-level manipulation.
It suggests it wasn't just a panicked, impulsive cover-up. It was thought out, calculated, using his own body as part of the false evidence trail.
So, the trial happens in December 2017. Todd takes the stand.
He did, maintained his innocence completely, stuck to the pipe accident story, portraying himself as this devastated husband suffering from shock and grief.
And the defense strategy was basically, he's dramatized, his memory is fuzzy, don't trust the science.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
They tried to poke holes in the forensic testimony. Argued maybe the car moving into the ditch caused the blood patterns, that the injuries could maybe somehow be interpreted differently. Challenged the expert.
But the prosecution just hammered the science, right?
They systematically laid out all the scientific evidence we've discussed. The impossible physics of the pipe. The glass proving the seat was empty. The blood proving the body was moved. And crucially, the autopsy findings. The strangulation, the multiple impacts, the lack of glass in the wounds.
Evidence that just couldn't be explained away by the accident story.
Exactly. They effectively showed the jury that the pipe and the broken windshield weren't evidence of how Barbara died. They were evidence of Todd's cover-up attempt.
And the verdict.
Guilty. On December 15th, 2017, the jury found Todd Candhammer guilty of first-degree intentional homicide.
And the sentence.
In March 2018, he received life in prison. He'll be eligible for potential supervision after 30 years.
Just tragic for the children, Jessica and Jordan. They defended him so strongly.
Absolutely devastating. To believe so fiercely in your father's innocence, only to have a jury confirm the prosecution's case that he killed their mother, it's unimaginable. And Todd, for his part, still insists he's innocent. His appeals have all been denied. The latest rejection was just last year, May 2023.
Wow. This deep dive, it really underscores how vital forensic science is. When someone constructs such an elaborate lie, sometimes the physical evidence is the only thing that can speak the truth.
It really is. The blood spatter, the glass analysis, the pathology, they became the irrefutable witnesses in this case. The sources really highlight that even though we might never truly know why he did it, the motive remains hidden.
The science proved the how and the what.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, it took this narrative of a freak accident and exposed it as a brutal, calculated murder, followed by a meticulous staging.
It leaves you with such a disturbing final thought, doesn't it? What does it say about us, about the potential for hidden lives, that someone can build this facade of a perfect, loving, 25-year family life?
Yeah, stable, financially secure, everything looking great on the outside.
And then commit such incredible violence and weave such an intricate minute-by-minute lie to conceal it. How much darkness can possibly hide behind even the most public displays of devotion? Makes you wonder.